Hello, I'm Chris Jones and Croeso. Welcome to today's Supply Chain Summit. Now, the summit is part of a Pan-Wales campaign to expand the supply chain to ensure that as many SMEs as possible are visible to buyers and are offered the support to find and bid for contracts. Business Wales are creating a data resource to enable Business Wales and Sell to Wales to match SMEs with tender opportunities which will support the foundational economy, i.e. buying goods and services closer to home. During the past couple of years, Business Wales have supported a number of events which have introduced new SME suppliers to organisations like the NHS, local authorities and Tier 1 construction contractors. This has resulted in an expansion of supply chains of more than 62% and a satisfaction level of 99.9% from those SMEs who have attended. Now, buyers are keen to expand their local supply chains even further, and so far SMEs have won millions of pounds of work through this model, using the Business Wales fully funded service to support them. By joining us today, you'll learn how important you as an SME are to those big organisations and how you can make your own business visible to them. Because whether you're a roofer, electrician, an architect or a sandwich maker, yes, they buy a whole range of goods and services. Your business is of great value to these buyers. Our first speaker today is Stephen Pickard, who is the Senior Procurement Lead in the Transformational Procurement Team at NHS Wales Shared Services Partnerships Procurement Services. So, Croeso, welcome, Stephen. So let's get started by asking, what is the role of shared services and how does it work with individual procurement teams across the various trusts?
So the role of shared services is to support all of the health boards and trusts in Wales with their common requirements. So we're talking about things like legal and risk services, primary care services, and in my case, procurement services. The transformational procurement team that I lead is there to support all of our frontline and national sourcing procurement teams in incorporating things such as social value and foundational economy within their work.
Okay, so for those who don't know, maybe, how many trusts are there in Wales, first of all, and what is the annual spend?
So there's 7 health boards in Wales that cover all of the regions across the country, and there are 3 national trusts as well, the trusts being the Welsh Ambulance Service, Velindre NHS Trust, who host shared services that I work for, and also Public Health Wales, who many will be familiar with. And collated, we have an overall requirement, an overall budget of about £2 billion per annum in terms of non-pay expenditure.
And how much of this spend is in Wales, and what are the plans to increase this, and by how much?
Quite a significant portion of the expenditure is in Wales, running at about 30% as an estimate, which, you know, when you're looking at such a large figure with our £2 billion of non-pay expenditure, means that quite a significant amount of money is directed towards the economy in Wales. But shared services and procurement services recognise the need to support our foundational economy, to grow businesses and resilient supply chains here in Wales. So plans to grow that are well underway.
And what's the current timescale on this?
It's an ongoing requirement. It's certainly become more of a priority in recent years with changes to national procurement law, where it's been mandated that we include a weighting for social value, and we're utilising that weighting to drive more investment towards the foundational economy. But we set ourselves annual targets to grow our expenditure in Wales, so it's an ongoing and really high priority for us in the NHS.
And what type of goods and services are bought by shared services, and how are they advertised?
With shared services representing all of the health boards and trusts, there's a requirement for all types of products and services. Some aligned with health, as you'd expect. So typically you'll see requirements for healthcare products, healthcare equipment, but some things that people might not expect. So there are plenty of opportunities for food manufacturers and suppliers, management services suppliers, cleaners, every type of thing that you'd expect to support a wide-ranging and functioning organisation such as the NHS in Wales. So the way that our goods and services, our requirement for goods and services is advertised is through the Sell to Wales website, and the Sell to Wales website issues a notice to the market, either a prior information notice or a contract notice stating that we have a requirement for any type of good or service, and it directs people on where they can access our tender documents, information around the product and service in the form of a specification, and how you'd actually respond to our requirement and respond to our tenders and hopefully be successful in terms of contract award.
Does this include frameworks, and are they dynamic so that suppliers can join during the life of the framework?
There certainly are framework agreements. Typically, we don't utilise dynamic frameworks as often as you might expect, often because our contract durations are relatively short anyway. So the longest contracts typically are around the 4-year mark. So there's an ongoing communication, ongoing discussion with suppliers of goods and services, and we're always working to try and incorporate any sort of developing requirements as well. That's not to say that there aren't dynamic purchasing frameworks available. We certainly have some in the field of software, and we also work with organisations such as NHS Supply Chain and Crown Commercial Services who do have dynamic frameworks in place.
Stephen, can you explain the objectives maybe of the foundational economy and how the new NHS team are working to expand the local SME supply chain in Wales?
Absolutely. So the objectives of the foundational economy agenda here in Wales are to grow the types of businesses that supply all of us in our everyday lives, whether that be in our working environments or in our personal lives, and to grow that missing middle that's been absent in areas historically, so that we have a society that provides all of the products and services that we need on a daily basis, and even has the capacity to export into external markets. One of the reasons we're looking to do that is to support economic growth here in Wales, and obviously by providing those goods and services to us and further afield, it will provide a boost to the economy. But another really important issue for procurement services is supply chain resilience. So if we're able to source closer to home, typically we'll have resilient supply chains, and we'll also have supply chains that are better for the environment, with lower carbon emissions and all those environmental benefits.
How will you be working with Business Wales, therefore, on this project?
Business Wales have been an incredible support to us in procurement services in NHS Wales for as long as I can remember. They provide support directly to businesses in terms of responding to procurement opportunities. So when we advertise our procurement opportunities on Sell to Wales, some organisations might not be familiar with the tender process, they might not be familiar with the systems that we use or how to structure a response to an invitation to tender. And that's where Business Wales come in and provide that direct support by they run workshops, they visit organisations individually and prepare them as best possible to respond to a procurement opportunity.
How can SMEs see the opportunities, and will there be any events where suppliers can engage maybe and meet the buyers?
So they can see opportunities by visiting the Sell to Wales website. Again, that's where we post details of our procurement exercises, either in the form of a prior information notice or a contract notice. And you can read all about the goods and the services that we require, the timescales for our procurement exercise and the best way to respond. There'll also be the opportunity to engage directly with procurement teams, buyers, sourcing officers at regular events that we run alongside Business Wales and colleagues throughout the year.
So what existing future projects can you share maybe with us which will provide SMEs, both existing and new, with opportunities to supply the NHS?
I think the most exciting thing for new and existing SMEs across Wales is the fact that we do incorporate a significant weighting for social value within our procurement work. So organisations that are established here in Wales that offer employment opportunities to people across the country and bring economic prosperity and resilience to the people of Wales will be best placed to respond to our opportunities. So no matter what business you're in, you should visit Sell to Wales and find out about the fantastic opportunities that exist to supply to NHS Wales.
Are there any barriers for suppliers? And if so, how do they overcome these or obtain support?
Quite often the barriers are a lack of familiarity with the process or just no knowledge of the process. I've met with organisations previously who have said, they just don't know how to access these contracts that the NHS have in place. And it really is quite a straightforward process that's designed to be fair and transparent and to offer opportunities to everyone. So by visiting Sell to Wales and by working with organisations such as Business Wales, you can access all of our opportunities, and the business is there to be won by businesses here in Wales, by enterprises here in Wales, and as I've said, the social value weighting that we have now really puts business in Wales on a very strong footing.
And are these opportunities all advertised on Sell to Wales or other portals, methods where they should be looking for them? And how do these work?
So Sell to Wales is where our highest value procurement opportunities and supply chain opportunities exist. Typically we're talking in the region of £25,000 or more in terms of a contract value. And that does cover a very large quantity of opportunities. All sorts of industries are available through Sell to Wales. One thing I'd note is some of our lower value procurement is not subject to some of the same types of procedures that you might expect to see with higher value exercises. So we do use smaller sort of quotation systems for low value expenditure, but that's not to say that there aren't a great deal of opportunities in that category as well. So we use a platform called MultiQuote to reach out to the market and to seek quotations for things like desks or computer equipment or lower value spend, and organisations would be really well placed if they were to register themselves on MultiQuote platform as well.
How important is it to shared services that you expand your local SME supply chains?
It's incredibly important to shared services and procurement services. As representatives of all of the health boards and trusts in Wales, we've been tasked with increasing our social value through procurement, and I've mentioned some of the benefits in terms of economic prosperity, sustainability, and so many benefits of utilising SMEs in Wales. We really want to do this, and we really want to work with the suppliers that are out there.
And Stephen, as a final point then, what would your one key bit of advice be to an SME who has not supplied the NHS in the past and thinks that it's something that maybe is just out of their reach?
It's certainly not out of your reach, and my one key recommendation would be to register with Business Wales and Sell to Wales. All of the supply chain opportunities exist there, and there are billions of pounds worth of contracts available to SMEs and enterprises in Wales, so please do register on those websites.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Stephen. Thank you so much for that insight. So now we're joined in studio by Nick Abbott. Nick is a procurement and value for money manager at Link Cymru Housing Association. So, diolch. Thank you for joining us today, Nick. Tell us first of all, what is Link Cymru and what is your position within the organisation?
So Link Cymru is a registered social landlord in Wales. We've got 3,600 general needs properties. We operate 40 independent living schemes and also 3 nursing homes. My role is procurement and value for money manager. I look after the day-to-day operational procurement activities, as also the strategic procurement and supply chain risk management. So that's pretty much everything from what we buy for our back office right down to what we use in our care homes, and all of the construction, of course, and new build works as well is within the remit of my team.
What does your supply chain look like then? Is this mainly based in Wales? And how big a part do SMEs play?
Our supply chain is a real mix because of the breadth and the scope of our operations. A strong proportion of our suppliers are based in Wales, and a strong proportion of those based in Wales are SMEs.
What are the main goods and services you buy?
The breadth of our operations and scope of what we do means we've got a really wide range of goods, services and works that we buy. We buy from obviously things for our frontline operations in our nursing and care settings, including food and cleaning materials and products, PPE, right through to back office, ICT, for our sort of back office operations. And then of course our repairs, maintenance and construction works, which includes heavy investment in our properties around decarbonisation, but also new build schemes as well.
Do you sometimes have to buy goods and services outside of Wales then? And if so, what's the reason for that?
Yes, we do have to buy things outside of Wales. Largely that's because they're not available in the volume that we need within Wales, or they're simply not available in Wales, or actually they're not available at a price that would deliver long-term value for money for our business, for our customers, in terms of purchasing, if we were purchasing from within Wales. Also, as a part of the public sector, we're governed by the public contracts regulations, and consequently there is only a limited number of circumstances where we can truly restrict to a Wales-only supply chain. That said, we do everything we can to make our contract opportunities attractive to SMEs in Wales and encourage them to work with us and to participate in our procurement processes. So we're really trying to get them engaged and involved, even if we can't restrict it just to Welsh suppliers. We try and make sure we do everything to get them within our supply chain that we can, within the limits that we have to work within.
And are you actively looking for new SMEs as suppliers, Stephen?
We're always looking for new SMEs and new suppliers within our supply chain. There isn't any particular trade or industry that I'd say at the moment I want to single out. Particularly in construction, we know a lot of the trades are a challenge for us at the moment. But there isn't one that I'd single out and say absolutely that's where we've got to focus, because again the breadth and the scope of our operations, we're always looking for new suppliers. But that said, a couple of key projects we've got coming up, or key work streams, is obviously our new build programme, so construction of new domestic dwellings, including independent living schemes and sort of small communities or sites of houses, and then our decarbonisation programme as well, with decarbonising properties in Wales, bringing them up to that more energy efficient standard that we need to achieve to deliver the net zero targets from government.
So what does a typical contract look like? Is it for the build or refurbishment of a number of homes, or could the requirement be for a single dwelling maybe?
Our requirements, our contracts, typical contracts, I'd say that there's a real scope of, because of the scope of our operations, there's a real breadth of what is a typical contract. We've got one-off contracts, which are for one home refurbishment or maybe a very small number of properties. We've then got planned programmed works, which are much larger, typically longer contracts, where we're working through a planned programme of investment or improvements, such as re-roofing or kitchens and bathrooms, or other kind of improvements to our stock. And then we've got things like our new build. Again, those can range in size from quite small numbers of units, maybe lasting only 6 months, right up to quite big numbers of units and potentially lasting 2 years or more. And we've got cyclical compliance and repairs and maintenance contracts. Again, they're typically longer, maybe with one supplier partnering with us to deliver that cyclical maintenance and repair for a number of properties or all of our stock across Wales. Outside of construction, the breadth, the scope and the variation again is very similar. There isn't one standard or typical way we approach the market. Again, it's all about sort of the differences between what we need to buy for different parts of our business. I think in summary, I'd probably say that our approach is about the right kind of contract, length, duration, type, size, for what we need, so it really meets our requirements and delivers the best long-term value for our business.
How long do these contracts last for, and can contractors join a framework, for example, at any time?
So specifically on frameworks, the way frameworks work under the public contracts regulations means they're closed once they're awarded, so you couldn't join a framework at any particular time, but when they're advertised, of course, for procurement, suppliers will be able to join. As I've sort of said already, our contracts, the length of our contract ranges, really depending on what's right for that particular requirement. So I couldn't give all our contracts are going to be 2 years or 1 year. It's about what's right to deliver the best value for money, and also ensure that we're creating opportunity for development of a supply chain in Wales that's sustainable and able to deliver with us to achieve the best outcomes possible.
How do you therefore identify new suppliers, and what do they have to do to become part of your supply chain?
So we identify new suppliers very often through Sell to Wales. So we're looking at the Sell to Wales supplier database there and looking for suppliers on there. We also publish what are called prior information notices via Sell to Wales. That's where we say, look, we're going to be doing this particular contract in the future, and ask for expressions of interest. So that's where suppliers can contact us and say, look, we'd be really interested in working with you on this. And off the back of those prior information notices, or maybe identifying suppliers through Sell to Wales, we'll then do some more intensive one-to-one engagement, trying to understand the supply market and how it works, so that we can shape our contract to fit, to deliver best for suppliers and for us. So we're kind of matching our needs rather than assuming this is what we need and this is the best way to approach the market. But in terms of actually identifying suppliers, I'd say it goes back to Sell to Wales. That's one of our core places to look.
Now, the foundational economy is important to the wider Welsh economy. What are Link Cymru doing to meet these objectives, and how important are SMEs to meet these objectives?
Well, we're all well aware of the role that construction plays within the foundational economy, and I think within Wales, and particularly the communities that Link operate in, the SME construction sector plays a really critical role. And in terms of how Link are looking at the objectives of the foundational economy and how we're responding to them, I think I give you just a couple of examples. So in terms of our food supply for our kitchens in our extra care schemes, we're working with a group of other members of the public sector on refreshed procurement arrangements for food on a collaborative basis, and we're really trying to focus on the local how we can incorporate local food producers within that in the sustainable way, so that we can access local food where it's available, but also we're making sure that we're able to get that continuity of service and delivery that we need, obviously, for our customers. Another and possibly even better example directly related to construction is our decarbonisation works programme. We've developed a specific procurement engagement and supply chain strategy for delivering decarbonisation works within Blaenau Gwent and Newport, which is where we've got two projects running, and that's focused on encouraging and trying to get help SMEs to access the contract opportunities and then deliver the works for us, really maximising the benefits that they can get from participating in our project. Even if they don't win a contract, they're getting access to learning and opportunities to develop their skills and capability in that decarbonisation sort of arena, so that we can encourage and support the development of a sustainable decarbonisation supply chain within Wales, because of course that is going to be the future. There's an awful lot of work that we need to do in the decarbonisation space.
Now, Stephen, many businesses in your sector are very busy, of course, at the moment, especially with domestic work. Can you explain to SMEs maybe watching this today how attractive it is to engage with organisations like yourselves to maybe grow their businesses?
We've got a big pipeline of work, very regular pipeline of work as well, from new build and our repairs and maintenance, and also all of the other sort of scope of our operations. So yes, very busy. I'm sure the supply chain is very busy. We're very busy as well. But why would they want to work with us? Well, we're trying to take that approach, and we are taking that approach where we're engaging with the market early, understanding what they need from contracts to make them work for them, so that we can then procure and put our contracts together in a way that is sustainable for them and for us, to maximise the overall benefits for everyone. This isn't about just our tenants and just our residents and just our business. It's also about how we can really collectively maximise that overall benefit through the supply chain. So it ultimately does benefit our tenants and our customers and our communities in a much broader way, but it isn't that bottom line, just price, or it has to be in this particular style or whatever, and that conversation maximising opportunities for innovation, like I say, as well as opportunities for learning.
Link Cymru will be working closely with Business Wales, of course, to support you in your supply chain. What major projects are there in the pipeline, and will you be delivering events again that will explain these opportunities?
One of the key ones that we're going to be working on with Business Wales is our decarbonisation works programme. We're going to be conducting or carrying out decarbonisation works for quite a number of properties within Blaenau Gwent and in Newport. And we want to work with, or will be working with Business Wales to deliver our procurement and supplier engagement strategy, trying to really bring in those SMEs, particularly local to those areas where we're going to be doing the works, on a community-based approach to deliver those works for us, and also participate in the overall project to gain benefits, experience, understanding of the decarbonisation space, which is a challenging and new space for us all. And as part of that, we'll be delivering maybe one-to-one events, as well as more broad broader supplier events as well, where we'd love participation from as many SMEs as possible. Timescale for that, we're going to be completing those works over the next 12 months. So this is something that's happening right now and will be happening over the next sort of 2-3 months. You'll be seeing this ramping up and us then coming out and engaging with SMEs.
And will you be working with Business Wales to offer the support to SMEs that they'll need to find and maybe bid again for these projects?
Yes, we will. We'll be working with Business Wales on that as well, helping them identify where support is available. But also a part of our strategy is about offering some of that support ourselves in a way that's sustainable for us and sustainable for the suppliers. So, and that'll be focused on maybe those gaps, skills gaps that we think might exist within the supply chain, to help suppliers that maybe haven't worked with the public sector or in the decarbonisation space before, to gain some understanding, skills and experience, so they can come and work with us, if not now, in the future. And we'll be signposting obviously to Sell to Wales and to Business Wales, but working with our colleagues in both Sell to Wales and Business Wales on helping those suppliers develop and grow.
So last thing then, what's the next step then, if you like, for engagement with you?
Register on Sell to Wales. Register on Sell to Wales and engage with Business Wales. Register with Business Wales. I think, I've been asked, how do we find out about opportunities with Link? How do we work with Link? And the first thing I tell everyone is register on Sell to Wales. And the second one is start bidding for our work. We're not going to be able to incorporate you in our supply chain if you're not bidding. You won't be able to bid if you don't know about it. And you only get to know about it typically if you're on Sell to Wales. So definitely register on Sell to Wales. And for that support that you need, contact Business Wales.
Good, thank you very much for that. Okay, so our case study today is W.R. Bishop with Chris Bishop. W.R. Bishop are a family business supplying fresh produce and provisions to the catering industry. And Chris is going to tell us all about the support he's received from Business Wales.
W.R. Bishop are a family business supplying fresh produce, dairy produce and provisions to the catering industry, local authorities and the NHS. Over the last 60 years, our business has grown to supply over 2,000 deliveries a week, including to schools in 6 local authorities and 6 NHS health boards across South Wales. We also supply catering firms and restaurants all over South Wales region. In 2021, we moved to a bespoke brand new warehouse near Pontyclun, and today we employ 40 people across our businesses in Pontyclun and Cardiff. Our major customers include local authority contracts, schools and social services, and the NHS, which makes up a large percentage of our business. These major customers are vital to our sales planning, as the contracts mean we can plan in advance for things like vehicles, equipment, and staff job security. Also, we can plan for regular secure volumes of business, so we can negotiate competitive pricing with our suppliers, which in turn helps us compete for other contracts, which we're looking to tender for. We actually began to supply the NHS approximately 50 years ago. More recently, all public sector contracts we apply for are published digitally through the Sell to Wales website. As a director of a Welsh business, I can say it's extremely important for Welsh businesses to be able to tap in to public sector supply chains. The Sell to Wales system matches public sector tendering opportunities with suitable suppliers, and tenders are published on a daily basis. To ensure that a business registered on Sell to Wales receives relevant opportunities, it's vital that the alert section is completed properly. The company must complete a written profile that gives the potential customer an idea about the business. Simple details like how long you've been operating, the number of employees you have, and what is the main focus area of your business. It may also be interesting to note any accreditations, such as food safety standards or environmental and sustainability accreditations. It's also worth noting if you're a family-run business or any other relevant or interesting facts. It's also important to match a company's range of products to the Sell to Wales product codes, as well as the geographical locations you can operate in. This helps make sure that relevant opportunities will show up in email alerts you receive from Sell to Wales. Although Brexit didn't affect our business as much as we imagined it would, we were, however, affected by delays of fresh produce coming into the UK, shortages of some fresh produce items, and price rises which affected us and obviously our customers. During this time, we literally had to try and sustain the business to carry on trading. The government continuity grants for SMEs and the furlough scheme helped us to continue and retain our staff for when business were able to reopen. We were helped massively by the Free School Meals initiative, which actually saw over 1.5 million food boxes delivered across the region by Caerphilly Council. We turned to Business Wales for advice and support on sustainability to help us with our tender applications and to retain existing contracts. We were introduced to sustainability advisors from Business Wales who visited our premises and gave us some great advice. This advice led us to achieve the Green Dragon environmental standard, which directly helped win a contract tender, and the advice will definitely help support our future growth. Some of the advice was how to better use technology, how to use GPS to plan our routes in a more efficient way, to minimise diesel consumption and to reduce costs. Although the contract tenders can look a little daunting at first, our Business Wales advisor helped familiarise us with the documents on the e-tendering portal so that we could fully understand the document and ensure we could provide all the correct information about our company. The support we have received from Business Wales has helped us tremendously as a Welsh family business, and we hope we'll continue to work with them. Our plans for the future include maintaining our current contracts while remaining competitive to tender for new contracts. We'll also continue to source for new products and provisions that we can offer to our customers. We have been aware of the fully funded business support for a few years now, which is a great benefit to Welsh businesses in sourcing National Procurement Wales contracts. I think any Welsh SME should seriously consider taking advantage of the one-to-one support and workshops. We've had some great help, especially from tendering advisors. They've helped us guide us through the e-tendering portals, which can be quite daunting at first. I would fully recommend any Welsh firm to approach Business Wales, even if they feel they are not in a position to do so right now. It's vitally important for interested companies to understand how to tender for Welsh public sector procurement contracts and the requirements needed for doing so. I'm sure many will find that after Business Wales' experts demonstrate what is possible, they will likely discover there are more opportunities available than they would have imagined.
And that brings us to the end of the presentations. Thank you so much to all the speakers and all their input, of course. So to reiterate, how can you get involved? Now, to ensure that you can be matched, Business Wales are encouraging you, of course, to register with Sell to Wales, which is a vital business development tool to find contract opportunities within the public and the private sector. It's free to register and free to use. Approximately £6.5 billion is advertised each year on Sell to Wales, and roughly 80% of the contracts are smaller opportunities, ranging from £1,000 to £50,000. So there are opportunities out there for businesses of all types and all sizes. As they say, you've got to be in it to win it. So the Business Wales regional teams will be contacting you following this event to support you with your registrations and the other initiatives that have been discussed during this summit. So from me, Hwyl fawr.